What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Fantasy Golf Bag podcast. I am your host, Redkacheek, also known as Drew, and we will be previewing the Valspar Championship down in Tampa, close to Clearwater, actually. But pretty fun finish to the Players Championship. We had a playoff this morning. This is being recorded on Monday. Again, this is a video format, so you can find this on YouTube or on all the podcast channels with the audio version. But yeah, so Rory got his second Players Championship with a playoff win over JJ Spaun. So all in all, with all the bad publicity Rory was getting this week, stealing a kid's phone for heckling, yeah, pretty good for him to basically gut it out and win this thing. Terrible conditions or just tough conditions, and he got fortunate with not being one of the last groups out every single over the weekend with the worst wins. But he hung around long enough, made his charge on Sunday, and fortunate enough to get into a playoff. Had a knee knocker there on 18 to mostly assure himself a chance at a playoff at worst, we'll say. But yeah, he snuck it in the right side. So it definitely had a feeling of the U.S. Open last year at Pinehurst. But yeah, shout out to everybody at Fantasy Golf Bag. There was several different screenshots I saw. A couple guys, top 50 and some of the single entry stuff, and a couple in the top 200. Sunday again was rough for me. It was I bounced around second on FanDuel. Was basically 15th to second after Thursday. I mean, honestly, I think I was probably in the top 5 at certain points on Thursday, which is nice to see, but never, you don't count those chickens before they hatch or roost or whatever they call. But Friday hung around and got up to stayed around top 10, and then Saturday hung around the 10th place. So definitely live if things go the right way on Sunday. And Straka played pretty poor. Jaeger kind of blew up. So it did not transpire. I think I finished outside the top 100 on FanDuel, that lineup at least. And then the Millie Maker. I mean, I think you have a sweat. Anything inside of like the top 1,000 going into Sunday. I did an article several years back. It was called like the making of a Millie Maker winner, and it basically tracked the Millie Maker winner through each round. And like honestly, I think in one of those scenarios, the winner was like 7,000th place or something, or even further back on Thursday. Moved up on Friday. Moved up a little bit more on Saturday, probably in the top 200 or top 500, and then it goes on to win. So like you never know in that type of format with 100,000 entries where you really stand. And even this morning with the playoff, because the placement points, I didn't check to see what the leaderboard did as far as shaking up, but people had 2 players with first place points. And only one gets first place points. So there was a 10-point swing this morning with those having Spaun in their lineup. So I'm sure for someone they moved up and some others moved down around first place. So I don't know if the guy winning first place hung on enough to take it down. But I mean, there's just so many swings with that many people. Percentages wise, I mean, you got 19% owned Rory or whatever he was, and that's or 30%, and that's 20,000 lineups, 30,000 lineups. So it can be a huge swing, and getting the low owned guys to just stay around long enough and cap it off is a tough sweat. So hats off to everybody that did well this week. Outrights obviously did not win. I don't I honestly don't. My stuff is set up. I don't bet favorites to that degree in that type of event with so many good favorites. So like Rory at 15-1 or whatever he was, 18-1, or actually I think he was 9-1 to open, got to 15-1. Yeah, I don't bet that. If he was the Travelers Championship, he probably shows some value. But in this type of field being deep, my numbers tend to favorite guys that have a reasonable chance to win and are priced closer to 30-1 to 80-1, we'll say. Even on weeks like this week, which is, a reasonable field, there's probably some guys over 100-1 that are worth taking a shot on. The Players Championship just isn't that. It's the same with majors. But I also don't take the other side of that and play the super favorites. And guys have success doing that, but there's just so much volatility. You can even see it in our projections. The standard deviation for an event with a minus 15 winning score is like 28 points. That's like, it's literally like a 50% standard deviation, which is crazy. So, yeah, we did not hit the three-peat, but we are going to try to attack it at the Valspar. And this stream preview, we'll break down the golf course just like we always do. Hopefully you guys have been benefiting from that. And then taking those, tidbits into some of our tools at fantasygolfbag.com. So with that being said, let me go ahead and bring up the Course Preview Pro and we'll talk about it. So I've played this course probably maybe not a dozen times. I've probably played it 10 times, close to a dozen, probably 10 times, I'll say. Played the Southern Amateur there. I actually played with Smiley Kaufman and Trey Mullinax. I think Harris English played in the group ahead of me. Russell Henley won that year, I believe. So was able to, fortunate enough at that time, at least, was playing decent enough. I could play with some good players that at least kept it going into playing good professional golf. But yeah, I've played this course a good number of times. And I actually do like this golf course. I think it's a nice, even, an equalizing type of golf course which we'll see. We'll talk about it here in a second. There's not a lot to be gained off the tee on most holes. These guys play it really well. I mean, some of these holes are tough and they play it. They really make it look easy. But this will be similar to what you've seen the last few weeks where the par fives are really the scoreable holes. But you'll even see a bigger accentuation here where driving distance is so much less important. It's a lot of basically position off the tee. I mean, I can think through probably, 3 or 4 holes on the front nine where they have to hit irons off the tee on semi-long par fours. And then on the back nine, probably not as many irons, but you probably have to hit less than driver. Some guys hit less than driver on what is that? 10? 10 and 11. Honestly, the 11's a par 5. And the way the hole shapes, some guys do lay back or hit 3-wood to kind of stay in position. But 12 is an iron off the tee. 16, you're hitting 3-wood or iron off the tee, depending on how you stand. Some guys still hit driver, which is interesting. And a lot depends on the wind. And then 18, even guys hit 3-wood off the tee. So just it's much more. The rough is penalizing for the way these greens are set up. And to me, I like that in the modern day of professional golf where guys can all hit it. The best players can all hit at 330. This is one where there's a lot less of that being an advantage, which is nice to see. So I think there's actually some benefit to scrambling on this type of golf course where you're going to have a lot of longer irons and you're going to have to scramble. So let's talk through it. This will be played at the Copperhead course in Innisbrook. It's a par 71, 7,340 yards. I have it down as ryegrass. It's basically a ryegrass overseed on Bermuda. Jason talked about this a few weeks ago. Everything down here is Bermuda. Some of these courses have like a hybrid Bermuda, but the resort courses and the course that get a lot of play, ryegrass is kind of their go-to for making sure the course doesn't die because it's like the prime time down here during the winter is when they make all their money with people traveling down south. They get out of the snow and they play a lot of golf. Ryegrass is really nice. So yeah, par 71, you can see in the hole by holes, the only holes that are playing under par is, and I'll say considerably under par, is 1, 11, and 14. Those are the 3 of the 4 par 5s. Number 5 plays slightly under par, like 0.03 shots under par. It's a very long uphill double dog leg, if you will. It kind of goes up the hill. It's a blind second shot, goes left, kind of goes back right in the layup area, and then goes back left again. And then 12 plays 0.01 shots under par. It's a short hole. They hit iron off the tee and have a wedge in. And we'll just call that playing to level par because it's really a pretty easy hole because it doesn't take much to get it down there and have 160 in, which for these guys is a wedge. So look for the par 5s again. all the par fours, most of the par fours play considerably over par, and the others just play over par by a tenth of a shot or so. Average winning score here is 11 under par. Average cut line is about a shot over par, +1. We have driving distance of 287, driving accuracy of 57%. So kind of ran through those four numbers really quickly. So the average winning score, the scoring average here is about 0.68 over par, so 71.68. The winning score is about 6 shots less than the tour average. Average cut is 2 shots higher than the tour average. And then driving distance is down, driving accuracy is down. So again, to my point where driving accuracy is not going to be, or driving distance is not going to be a huge benefit or factor outside of a couple of the par fives. Like even number one's not really an advantage off the tee. As you would think of a par five, there's a lot of trouble. Guys, you can easily make an 8 or a 7. I think 11 is similar in that regard. Again, there's really no room to bomb it. 14 is the only difference. The 14, there's a lot of room out there. You can rip it down there. Even if you hit it through the fairway into the rough, you probably could still get a wood on it and get it down in front of the green and have a good chance for a birdie. So it's just it's not demanding in the sense of like it's not like US Open golf or Bay Hill even. But definitely driving distance is less of a factor. Driving accuracy, making sure you're in play, avoiding the rough. Because again, you're going to have a lot. You'll see it in just a second. There's a lot of longer shots, even besides the par threes, where hitting it out of the rough is just not going to work. It's not going to happen. You're not going to do very well here. So you can see the missed fairway penalty is about 0.3 over par. Distance penalty 0.15. This is down from the tour average. So again, the distance penalty is not a thing here. What other stats are interesting? Let's see. Green regulation percent is way down. It's 57%, which is 8% lower than the tour average. And then you can see it even from the rough, it's 37%. And then from the fairway, it's 67%. Both of those are less than tour average. So, into the greens is tough already. And then just getting it in play, in position off the tee is very important. So we'll go ahead and talk through kind of breaking down the golf course. You can see here in the graph on the left where the winner, top 10, top 25, how they kind of differentiated. Again, off the tee is nothing. You can basically, the dots aren't perfectly on top of each other, but relatively speaking, basically top 25, top 10 winner. And to be fair, even the made cuts, everybody that made the cut are all in the same boat with strokes gained off the tee. Approach is a bigger spread for top 25 and top 10, and then another bump ahead for the winner. Around the green, I mentioned scrambling is important, which it is. It doesn't show that in the strokes gained around the green here, but it is a factor for sure when the green regulation percent is almost 50%. And then putting is a pretty big factor. You can see the difference in top 25 to guys that made the cut is a huge difference. It is, let's see, if you made the cut, you gain about 1.5 or 1.1 strokes putting. If you finish in the top 25, you gain about 2.7 strokes putting. So over a shot and a half as a difference between just making the cut and finishing in the top 25. And then even from there, it's another shot higher for the top 10 and another shot higher for the winner. So putting actually is a pretty big factor here. Driving distance bucket. So like I said, there's a lot of holes where guys, you have to hit iron off the tee. I mean, there's just no way around it. 2 is the other hole. I forgot about 2. 2 guys can hit 3 wood maybe if they get lucky, but a lot of guys, the better players at least, will hit 2 or 3 iron off the tee or hybrid maybe for position because there's water down the right side. There's trees and rough on the left side. They're just trying to get it in, just hit it in the fairway, take their 180-yard shot and move on with their day. 180 is probably generous. It's probably going to be closer to 200 when they lay back with an iron. But you can see here, 230 to 250, there's 1 drive. 250 to 270, there's 1 drive. 270 to 290, there's 6. And then 290 to 310, there are 4. And my guess is the 290 to 310 is definitely the par fives, but I would be surprised if it's another. I would not be surprised if it's another hole. So let's take a quick look at it. Yeah, 1 is 290. It's 300. 6 is a par 4. It's a longer dogleg right. That's 295. Hole 5 is a par 5. It's 275. Partly because it plays uphill. Other part because there's a bunker down the right side. Guys, some of them, they know it's a 3-shot hole. They lay back short of it so they can have an easy layup. Otherwise, if you can't really clear that bunker and that's what you're going for, and you get in that bunker, your layup is going to be to like 250 in. So you're just kind of screwed. Let's see. Hole 10, par 4 is 299. That's a downhill shot. I think guys still hit 3-wood off that hole, a lot of them. So it's a little bit misleading with 299. Hole 11, the par 5 is 290. And hole 18 is 282. So I was wrong. 282 off 18. So all of that to say, there's a few holes where guys will hit driver. We'll just call it like, we'll call it 3. Call it 3 holes, guys hit driver. Everything else around this golf course is likely 3-wood or less. We'll be generous. We'll say 4 drivers because there's a couple of those that are probably in that 290, just under 290, that due to the elevation here, which is a very interesting feature of this golf course, the elevation changes. They probably do hit driver. So we'll say 4 as a driver number. So going into the approach distance distribution, it's really, it's about tour average. We'll say from 50 to 125, 125 to 150, and 150 to 175. The big difference here is 175 to 200. That's the par 3s and a lot of the par 4s of approach shots. So just for reference, the tour average is, if I can get it to hover, 18.4% of shots from 175 to 200. Here it's going to be 30%. So an extra 12% or so. Pretty big difference. And then 200 plus is actually less than tour average, mainly just because it's shifted down. I would be willing to bet the 175 to 200 plus is probably close to tour average as a whole. But if we just want to fine tune the buckets and use that for like approach IQ, one of our tools, approach IQ, that's probably what you want to look at, 175 to 200. All right, last 5 winners. We got Peter Malnati at -12, Taylor Moore -10, Sam Burns -17, Sam Burns again -17, and then Paul Casey, RIP to live, in 2019. He won it at -8. So you can see the winning score besides Burns at -17 back-to-back years, right around 10, we'll say 10 under par, which I like to see. The interesting thing about the lead-in stats here, when I was looking through it, besides Malnati, who kind of came in with no real form, if you consider off the tee as not a huge benefit here, it makes a little bit more sense. But even green and regulation was down. His proximity was higher than the field average he's been playing against. It's definitely out of nowhere. That's why he was 300 to 1. But you can go through and look at like Taylor Moore, Burns, Casey, and on back down the line. All of these players were gaining with approach. Some of them were losing with around the green, which was interesting. And some of them were losing off the tee, which again makes sense. It's not the typical tour golf course where you have to hit 10 of 14 drivers. So keep that in mind. I think approach is going to be even more accentuated. Really like looking at the long irons, looking at green and regulation from 175 to 200. You can look at strokes gained approach from 175 to 200. I think all that's very, very beneficial. I mentioned around the green as a factor because it does. Guys are going to have to scramble a little bit. You can see even down here when Sam Burns won in 22, shooting -17. It's probably unfair due to how good he played. His green regulation rate was 69%. So everybody was pretty high there. If we go back to last year, Malnati was 68%, which is interesting. So, but then Mackenzie Hughes finished third. It was 52%. Chandler Phil was 58%. So I think honestly, you could gain a lot by just hitting greens. And a lot of that goes into play with driving accuracy. So as far as the course history, let's take a quick look at the most top tens. Now this field has changed over the years. Guys have, it hasn't really been a strong field. I was talking to a buddy about this earlier today. The PGA Tour used to have a rule where, if you haven't played an event in 3 years or 4 years, whatever it was, you have to add 1 or 2 new events every year to your schedule. So a lot of it, this event was mostly in a void where it was on the schedule. And then, a random guy like Paul Casey was one of the best in the world in 2019. They would add it. They would show up. Justin Thomas was kind of the same way. So not a ton of studs that have a lot of course history, but you can see where the top players that play here over the years do quite well. So Justin Thomas has 3 top 10s. His last 4 years was T13, T3, T10, T64. Again, those years he was so good with his irons, and that's really how you make it around this golf course. Xander Schauffele's got a T12 and a T5. Tommy Fleetwood, unfortunately, to our Fantasy Golf Bag Discord, will probably be a talking point this week, but a T16 and a T3. Sam Burns has his 2 wins and a 6th, and then missed cut last year. On down the line, I'm not going to go through. I'm not, for sake of time, I'm not going to go through everybody, but you could go look at this and see, generally the top of this board. Those guys are going to be the best with their irons. That's why they're so good. One of the reasons why they're so good. And they do pretty well here. So a couple of the other ones that might not stand out, Webb Simpson, Adam Hadwin has a lot of missed cuts and he's got his win, a T12, a T7, a T5, and he's got 4 missed cuts mixed in around there. Just very polarizing finishes from Adam Hadwin. Taylor Moore win and then a T12. So definitely some course history to be had, but it is still pretty volatile. Just as an example, kind of anecdotally, when you look at Adam Hadwin having nothing but miscuts and top 12s. So pretty interesting golf course, but I think that makes it fun. So with that being said, I think that is it. I will say really quick, if you go to our Pro Tools and go down to Time Machine, so obviously those lead-in stats were for the winner. You can now take a quick look through the top 10 or top 25 or top 5 and get a look at what everybody in the top 10 brought that week, looking back at the last 12 events. So, Peter Malnati, Cameron Young, Chandler Phillips, Ryan Moore, gaining with approach, losing off the tee. So it's just something to look for. A little bit more context, if you will, right? Like you're not just looking at the winner, which is nice to see, but now you can kind of go back in the top 10 or top 25 and look at exactly what those guys were bringing into that event. And then obviously, how they finished top 25 or top 10, whatever it is. So it gives you a nice quick overview look at the best stats to look for as someone comes here versus just looking at the golf course and saying, it kind of bears it out anyways, but approach is pretty important. Yes. But then you'll see golfers where off the tee, maybe they did gain off the tee, but you look at the lead-in stats and off the tee didn't matter at all. Some of the worst off the tee lead-in numbers did the best because they kind of could lean off of the driver a bit, focus on their strength at the time, which was approach, and then go from there. So a nice, easy way to look at it. Let's hop into the Rolling Stats Pro. We have both strokes gained and we have Spectrum. Kind of tempted to look at Spectrum for this, but for sake of the show, we'll just do strokes gained. That way it's more relevant. But of course, I highly encourage you guys to check out the Spectrum data. Very beneficial for comparing golfers over the last few events, getting a feel for how their true form is versus just what strokes gained shows, due to the way the aggregation works for strokes gained and the way Spectrum rules out or excludes some of the outliers for that particular player. All right, so we'll talk through this. We are at 25 minutes. So again, my goal for these shows and podcasts is, sub 45 at worst, and try to shoot for around 30, 35 minutes. We'll probably go over the 30 minutes here, but let's go ahead and talk through some of the top guys that really stand out. So unfortunately, like I said, for the Fantasy Golf Bag subscribers, Tommy Fleetwood will be another one that will most likely be tipped this week. Hopefully not to win, since he doesn't want to win on Sundays, or on the weekend in general. But Tommy Fleetwood definitely grades out the best. And honestly, we could kind of quickly toggle here, but like Tommy Fleetwood on approach, third in the last 8 events. He's number 1 in the last 12 events, 18th in the last 4 events. So still really, really good. Sepp Straka's in the same boat. Again, off the tee is kind of his weakness, if you will, as good as he's been. But definitely approach. He's 6th in the last 12, 5th in the last 8 events, and 10th in the last 4 events. Straka, I mean, this is a really good course for him. And I can pull it up really quick and take a peek. Yeah, so he's played here twice, 2019, and then he played here last year. He actually lost 3 strokes on approach last year and missed the cut. Definitely playing better golf now, and I would not be concerned with 2, mediocre to poor finishes here at the Valspar for Sepp Straka. Really like him. Sam Burns is going to be an X. I mean, he's dead last basically in this field in approach, just really, really terrible. If we pull Spectrum, he's still very, very terrible. In Spectrum, he's 112th in the last 8 events. Just very poor with the irons, which is something you can't do here. Now, I will say the trick is when you start looking at guys that are been poor, let's just say strokes gained approach in general, then you go take a look at specifically like 175 to 200, and let's see if maybe there's something to be said for Sam Burns in that specific range where he excels more so than the 200 plus he's been seeing, or 125 to 150, if someone's not great with their wedges. This week, maybe we can cater it to the 175 to 200 and find guys that really stand out. All right, keeping it going into the 9K. Corey Connor stands out quite a bit, as well as Shane Lowry, another one with really, really good irons coming in here. Off the tee, not so much. Putting, not so much. But as far as ball striking goes, with the irons at least, Shane Lowry is one of the best in this field by far. Will Zalatoris looks pretty good. Man, that was a tough collapse on Saturday for him. I'll probably dig in more, specifically that 175 to 200 for him. But another golf course where, for a guy that, his entire career has been great ball striking, but if the driver is somehow a little bit of a limiting factor with the swing changes he's made and his irons have been this good, this might be an opportunity for him to really shine, where there's less pressure on those tee shots with the driver, and he can kind of lean on his good approach play that he's shown, in the last 2 months. Tom Kim, a little bit there. His putting is absolutely atrocious. So honestly, that might be a fade depending on where he comes in at 9,200. Very good with the irons, but honestly, we talked about the putting being a factor. I think Tom Kim might be a wait and see type of play. Rounding out the 9K, we got Jordan Spieth and Alex Smalley. Smalley had a good week last week. Just peeking at their Spectrum numbers. Yeah, I mean Smalley's Spectrum approach is actually worse than his strokes gained, so it'll probably be another popular play, and we might be able to take advantage of fading Smalley here. Jordan Spieth doesn't look great, but I'm actually tempted to keep playing some Jordan Spieth at low ownership and a decent price tag. So stay tuned. I'll have my article out on Wednesday, but I think Spieth is one of those buy low candidates. This is a decent event where the driver is not a big factor. He's actually been driving it decent according to Spectrum, but just keep that in mind. There's some of these guys that I would not be afraid to buy low when you think there is some big potential for them for top 5 or even a win. All right, into the 8K range. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys here in the 8K range. Feels like a lot. Generally speaking, all these guys look decent with their irons. I would definitely pull some of these guys up in the Stat Model Pro and check their sample size. For example, Hovland ranked 2nd in the last 4 events, but I don't think he's been playing. He hasn't been playing that much. Off the tee and putting is pretty atrocious. So, to the same point I just talked about, was it Spieth? I think. No, it wasn't Spieth. It was. No, I don't remember. Was it Sepp Straka maybe? mean, he's been playing good anyways, but like where this takes a little bit of pressure off the tee, if his irons really have been that good, which we can peek at Spectrum. Yeah, Spectrum likes him more off the tee and likes him more for his approach. So Hovland might be worth taking a closer look at, we'll say. Yeah, the rest of these guys in the 8K range look pretty good. So as of now, I don't want to speak to anybody particularly. Clanton certainly should be pretty popular. I'm not too concerned with his numbers. They look average, but he's playing really good. Talk about him every week. Like there's just so much for him to gain from these events that he's probably more motivated than anybody else in the field outside of, some guy losing his tour card who's struggling anyways. And Luke Clanton has more to gain and he's playing better. So there's a lot to be said for the motivation factor for Clanton. We got, Michael Kim is up there, Glover, JT Poston. Honestly, man, all those guys seem like they're in play. Just quick glancing through this, I don't want to spew everybody, and that's certainly not my goal. And if you read my article, I don't do that. But first look at this, talking through guys that are playing good, kind of fitting a general profile. Those guys have all, we've been clicking them. Glover played well last week. Poston played better over the weekend. Man, I am not afraid to really kind of jam in a lot of these 8K guys. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Even, probably don't do Benny on, but like Jake Knapp looks intriguing. Yeah, the 8K range is pretty stacked. It's pretty stacked. All right, 7K range, and we will head down into the 6K range. So definitely a drop off in the skill profile. You'll see guys like Keith Mitchell here, Kurt Kitayama doing a lot of work off the tee and not so much with the iron. So this will be an interesting range. Definitely, again, I would take the extra 20 minutes, 15, 20, 30 minutes, or however long you want with Approach IQ and really get a look or a sense of what these guys have been doing lately from 175 to 200 and even 150 to 175. But at 175 to 200, they just have so many of those shots this week. That's going to be a real difference maker. And like I said, strokes gain approach encompasses every single approach they've hit. And again, it's on a scale, but if they've only been hitting 125 to 150 and a bunch of 200 plus, and for some reason they're struggling in that range, now they get 175 to 200. Some guys do better. They got a 7-iron that they love. I'm sure Hovland is kind of weird like that, where he's got some type of club and he gets up to a 5-iron or a 4-iron and he struggles, or he's get a wedge and now all of a sudden he's long left. Rory did that all last year, or all of 2023, I should say, with the wedges. And he's a great iron player, but his wedges were just completely atrocious. So sometimes it matters to get these guys on the right fit for how they've been playing. And it's tough to identify, but definitely Approach IQ can help with that. All right. Anybody else in the 7K range that kind of stands out? I'll even flip over to Spectrum to see if anybody specifically pops. Thagala is trending up, which is nice to see. I actually would like Thagala here. That would not mind that. Again, you gotta consider the putting. So like Doug Gem should be pretty popular. I hate it, honestly. It's just you can't go every other event and lose 5 or 7 strokes putting and expect me to want to play that. So, he might be a bet. He might be worth taking in matchups, but for DFS, the upside seems so capped for anybody doing that. He's dead. He's almost dead last in the last 12 events and last 8 events, which is probably not surprising to you as a listener. But, there's something to be said for playing golf, from tee to green. And Doug Gimmons does a really good job off the tee, really good job with his approach, and does not do it. Just gives so much back with his putter. It's absolutely terrible. So I would just be cautious of that. Let's see. Jacob Bridgman at 7,400. I like that play. Ryan Gerard as well. I think that's probably it in the low range. I don't see anybody that really pops out. Nicholas Norgard probably looks okay to most people. Spectrum gives him a negative factor on our Spectrum Edge. So just, again, another guy where you want to take the time to go look up specific shots they're going to have here. Max McGreevy looks pretty good. I'll probably definitely be playing that. I played him quite a bit. I watched him at Bay Hill. Was pretty impressed with him and Bridgman, to be honest. So Max McGreevy at 7,200 looks solid. And we'll give Joel Damon another shot. Joel Damon, Phillips, Hoey in the low sevens. Pretty good spot there. I actually like that quite a bit. Charlie Hoffman's been playing pretty good. Another good one. So we'll hop down into the 6K range. We are sitting at 35 minutes. Perfect. We'll do 4 more minutes and get us out of here. So 6K range. Danny Walker shows up again. He's at 6,900. Grades out very, very well. I mean, he's probably just, I don't think he'll be super popular. I don't think people will be jumping back to play Danny Walker. They kind of already thought he was a joke as far as contending last week, being the last man in. So I do think he'll probably be in my player pool. It wouldn't be like a single entry type of play, but he definitely looks good. Spectrum, just curious if Spectrum shows he's even better than that. So fantastic. Yeah. So Danny Walker, 6,900. Not a safe click, but certainly clickable. All right. We got Victor Perez trending up. Putter is atrocious, but trending up. And we can't be, beggars can't be choosers down here in the 6K range. So we kind of got to take our lumps with what we get. Quade Cummins, have been playing a good bit of him. I like his game. Grayson Sigg. I still haven't pegged Grayson Sigg. I can actually pull it up to see how he does on, we'll call this a long golf course, but just due to the distances that they have for approach shots. Yeah, he's gaining quite a bit. 175 to 200. He's gaining about a third of a shot, not a third, three tenths of a shot, which is a lot. 175 to 200. His driving accuracy looks good. 270 to 290. So yeah, I think Grayson Sigg is a pretty good profile here. Could definitely see him winning this type of event. He's kind of like he's better than Malnati, but he has a similar game, a similar profile as far as the length. Definitely not a similar game. Let's see here. Yeah, not a ton down here. There's definitely guys that have popped recently. Carson Young had a good start last week. His numbers don't look great, so definitely something to look into. Castillo's numbers don't look great, but I like him here. Finishing up the Florida swing, being from going to UF, I should say. Ricky Castillo is how you pronounce it, at 6,600, certainly playable. Terrible putting numbers, but surprising to me being from Florida. So we'll see how that shakes out, but I think Castillo is a good play. Stephen Fisk, I'll certainly be playing him at 6,500. You can see his numbers look great. Bet him at the Puerto Rico Open. I think he finished top 10 or not, if not top 5. Had a really good run there. Again, not the best putting numbers. Some of these guys just do it with one thing and not the other. It's kind of funny as a professional golfer to be that weak in a certain category. Webb Simpson kind of shows something. I might play some Webb Simpson. Neil Shipley's back. I have not kept up with what he's been doing, but certainly a golf course I could see him doing okay with. Vincent Norman continues to just have incredible strokes gain numbers with approach and off the tee. He's at 6,300, so keep an eye on that. And then I think that is it. I don't know who this Kevin Velo guy is. What's he been doing? A lot of missed cuts. He did gain on approach at the Honda. Yeah, no Kevin Velo. He pops for approach in his last 4 events just because of that one event at the Honda. So yeah, that's probably it. John Pack at 6,100. I think he probably played the Puerto Rico Open. How did he do? Miscut. T17 at the Mexico Open. He's from FSU. I'm not super big on just kind of jamming in the Florida guys for the sake of being from Florida or playing in Florida, but there's something to be said for being comfortable in Bermuda. So I don't know. I probably don't go down this far anyways. Yeah. Blades Brown at 6,300. You should definitely keep him in your player pool. Blades Brown is the young guy. He's 17, I think, turned pro at the American Express, putting together some really good numbers, some really good finishes. So yeah, Blades Brown, 6,300 is probably the lowest I would go. I think that's pretty comfortable. I think that is it. Yeah, like I said, you can check out the approach IQ. I'll just quickly show you guys that really quickly. So like you can see all the different buckets. I would just be, I would look at other ones, but man, I would just take a look at 175 to 200. I'd be looking at fairway shots. You can look at par threes as well if you want. I'd be looking at green and regulation and strokes gained approach and just seeing who is the best in that range with decent sample size, like Gary Woodland, number 1, Adam Svensson, number 3, Patton Kizzire, funny enough, Nikolai Hogard, 7,300, he's number 7. Victor Hovland's there, number 8. So this is definitely something I would be looking to, and then just kind of round that into the driving IQ or just the Stat Model Pro in general. So hopefully that helps. And that's all she wrote, guys. Hopefully you can still hear me. I just got a warning that something happened. So hopefully you can still hear me. Best of luck this week for the Valspar. You can find all my content at fantasygolfbag.com. Would encourage you to sign up and check out our fantastic tools. The FGB sim should be up by Wednesday morning. Fingers crossed. That'll include an optimizer and the sims. So stay tuned for that. Hop in the Discord. You can tag me on Twitter, DM me, whatever you want to do if you have questions. But and then last thing, we do have a new video catalog. So you can go to Content Video Library and you will see free tool tutorials and pro tool tutorials. That is a mouthful. So you can check out any of these. And, if you want to learn more about the tools from a quick overview, I think they're like, 5 to 10 minutes. And hopefully that does help get you started. All right, guys. Best of luck this week. We'll chat with you in the Discord. You can find my article on Wednesday night. And that's it. Good luck, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll see you later.